My mom and I, 25 female, have a contentious relationship. We've been mostly estranged for the last 7 years. I say mostly because she has made some effort to stay in touch while I faded away. My dad died when I was 4. Mom and him weren't married, but they were together. She leaned heavily on my dad's family for a couple of years. Then she moved us away so she could start a better life for us. After moving, she met John and married him. I was told more than once by John and my mom that John was now my father, and I was told to call him Dad, referred to him as Dad with others, and not to correct anyone who used the term Dad or Father. I was to correct those who said he was my stepdad. I didn't want to do this, but I was punished, and John yelled at me multiple times for disrespecting his love, and I was berated and told he was stepping up to take me on as his daughter, and the least I could do is to respect him as my father. When my mom gave John children, it became very clear he never saw me as his. I was treated differently. I wasn't given the same anything. Yet the rules remained in place that I called John Dad and would get punished for any instance of not. Mom always took his side, always backed him up, always agreed that he deserved some kind of respect for this stuff. I still have some bitterness over this. I didn't want John to be my father, but at the very least, if I'm going to be forced to address him as such and to correct people who spoke the truth, I felt like I should have been better at least. But that didn't happen, and I moved out the day I turned 18 and stopped speaking to or seeing my mom and John. She would reach out, and sometimes I would read or listen to her speak, but I felt good not having them around. Now John has been diagnosed with a neurological condition and my mom is caring for him. She asked me to come and help her, to help him, to help out their children. I refused. She told me she needed me, they needed me, and I'm their daughter. I told her I didn't care. I wouldn't help, and after everything they'd done, they deserved nothing from me. I told her she'd failed me as a mother, and as far as I was concerned, they were already dead and buried and nothing to do with me. She said I was being unfair, holding on to the past too much and lacking in compassion. She tried to tell me to think of the good times. I told her she failed me. She forced me to say stuff I didn't want to say as a kid in order to appease her husband, who didn't treat me like his kid anyway. A family friend reached out after the disagreement and told me I should be ashamed. And while they were imperfect back then, they are still my family, and I piled on a woman who is doing the hardest job imaginable, caring for a sick loved one. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your mom and stepdad both failed you as parents. Both of them disrespected your memory of your father. Your stepdad forcing you to call him something he wasn't entitled to and didn't live up to. Your mom choosing him and his kids over you. I mean, the only parent you had left didn't want to protect you. Now she can live by her choice. And that family friend can help her if she's so concerned, because it turns out she is not your friend. Yes, apparently family friend has plenty of time and energy on her hands. Perhaps she could put that to better use by helping OP's mom. Children are dependent on the grown-ups, so when people don't support their kids when they need it, they can't expect to get support when they get older. Agree. Also, there's imperfect and then there's abusive. That so-called friend is lucky they never had to learn the difference. People tend to get very selective in their memories of how things happened when it suits their needs. And do they need you or your money? For 7 years, he decided he was no longer your father, and your mother made only a token effort to remain in contact. Now there's a need on their part for help. They've decided you're part of their family. Feel free to walk away with a clear conscience. Last year, my aunt died and she left me her 3-bedroomed house in a nice area. I could easily rent it for $3,000 a month or sell for $1 million. I'm being bombarded with offers. However, the place needs a lot of repairs, and after paying taxes, I don't have the money to do it and haven't decided to rent or sell. My oldest son, Franklin, is 23 and just finished college. He works for an engineering company. Basically, I said he could live there as long as he pays the bills, taxes, utilities, etc., and starts fixing what he can so I'm neither losing nor making money. In the meantime, I can start saving money for bigger projects and repairs, and my son can keep an eye on the house. It will take a few years minimum to finish everything. Recently, he received a $238,000 inheritance from his maternal grandfather. The first thing he bought was a Porsche. I feel he can afford rent. All I'm doing is subsidizing a rich kid's housing expenses. Plus, my finances are starting to take a hit, and I have 2 other sons from my second marriage. I found out that my son moved in with his girlfriend, which I'm not happy about. I talked to my son. I said between his inheritance, moving in his girlfriend, and my finances, that he needs to start paying rent. He got furious with me and said I was trying to rip him off and backing out of our deal. Then he said that I'd use the money to make the house presentable and sell or rent when I should just give it to him. I said I'm not dropping this and I'll be back with an offer, but he will pay rent. Am I the idiot for charging my son rent in my house? So he was paying the taxes, utilities, etc. on this place and fixing what he could. That doesn't sound exactly like he was freeloading to me. If anyone was subsidizing someone else, he was allowing you to keep this building and possibly even make it more valuable to you. Sure, it's your house and you can certainly insist he starts paying rent, but you're definitely going back on your original deal. Feel free to cut a new offer or kick him out, but none of that changes the fact that you are the idiot. Also, OP, you can charge rent, but that also means entering a contract as a renter and landlord so your son no longer does all the stuff he used to, taxes, etc., and anything broken or not functioning needs to be fixed by the landlord. OP sounds bitter that his son got money and he didn't get even more. Agreed, what it sounds like is OP is jealous that the son bought a Porsche. All I'm doing is subsidizing a rich kid's housing expenses. Boo-hoo, that's a really odd way for a millionaire to talk about their own son. I had a fair deal with my son that benefited both of us, but then one of his loved ones died and I thought to myself, but how can this benefit me? This seriously feels like what OP is trying to not directly say with their post and are trying to use rising costs as an excuse to break their original deal. OP, you made a deal with your son to benefit the both of you. His inheritance doesn't change the nature of the deal. But the son broke the deal. He shouldn't have moved his girlfriend in without asking for permission. Just how much do you value the relationship with your son? Because at this point you're pushing him to hate you and drop you like a sack of rotten potatoes. Though I get the feeling you don't value the relationship between you and a rich kid. Oops, sorry, your son. Who the heck calls their kid that seriously? Calling the neighbours spoiled ones, that is one thing, but your own child? Honestly, everyone's the idiot. My older brother got married last weekend. It was a huge wedding and they had guests from all over the world. Not like every guest was from out of town, but our family is far-flung and there were guests from Denmark, Uruguay and Australia. There were a bunch of out-of-town people from all over North America as well. My wife and I have been trying for a couple of years to have a kid, unsuccessfully unfortunately. Until now, we're on week 12 and all is good so far. I was my brother's best man and my wife did the video they played at the reception. My brother and his wife had lunch with our parents and my wife and I yesterday. We told them that we were expecting and it didn't go as we expected. My dad, brother and sister-in-law were happy for us and my mom was upset. Not because we're expecting, because we didn't tell all the out-of-town family. We won't see most of them again for years. The only reason some were able to attend the wedding was because my dad has 1 billion air miles. So my mom said that we should have let everyone know, so they could be part of our good news. My brother thanked me for not overshadowing his wedding. My sister-in-law called me last night to thank me because she doesn't want to start crap with my mom. I didn't think it was the right thing to do, but my mom makes a good point. Some of the guests won't be back in Texas for years. So, am I the idiot for not mentioning that my wife and I are expecting at my brother's wedding? You know what? The out-of-town guests have email. I bet they have a phone too, and they probably receive cards and letters, may even be on social media. Out-of-towners can be updated on your happy news after the wedding. Good for you for not stealing the spotlight. Your mom is the problem here. Your brother and his wife, the people that got married, are glad you kept your news to yourselves. And good for you for not telling your mom in the down low because it sounds like she can be difficult. Take this as a lesson that you can never please everybody, but you can try to do the right thing. You are not the idiot. I've heard rumours that postal services are still in operation in countries like Denmark, Uruguay and Australia, so a short, handwritten announcement might possibly still arrive prior to the birth. The bride and groom thanked you for allowing them to have their day, which is what matters. As for your family, thanks to modern technology, they can text, call or video chat to say congrats. Your mom is so difficult. We won't see most of them again for years. Ask your mom if she thinks these relatives would really care if they learned your good news at the wedding or on Facebook. I'd be thrilled for you either way. For some reason, your mom would rather have talked about going to be a grandma at her son's wedding than celebrating the bridal couple. Wanna bet OP is mom's favourite child? Jeebus, you just can't win when it comes to weddings, can you? If you'd announced at the wedding the bride would have flipped and said you stole her joy, blah blah blah. Will this be the first grandbaby? Mom sounds like she wanted more than mother of the groom's attention. Maybe she wanted to be given grandma attention and congrats. Be careful with your mom going forward. If she can discard the best interests of your brother and sister-in-law, she might be an overbearing grandma. My sister was always a tomboy and she made it clear very young that she's into girls. She didn't even have to come out as she's been talking about her girl crushes since middle school. She has a really close best friend, Ben, who's always allowed to come over and even sleep at our house because our parents viewed him as just a friend. Meanwhile, I was never allowed to have boys over. Their relationship was always a bit suspicious to me because they were always very close physically, playing wrestling with each other and such. She is 19 now, attending the same college as Ben, and they even live together as roommates. She came home last weekend and announced that Ben and her are dating now. Our parents were really surprised, but they didn't say anything. I pulled her aside to ask what's up. I see two options. One, she's not into Ben but suddenly decided to use him as a beard and go back to the closet for some mysterious reason. Two, she was always into him and they'd been secretly dating all this time and she purposefully lied to our parents to be able to spend more time with Ben. She said that she didn't lie, she needed time to figure out her orientation and coming to terms with it when everyone treated her like a lesbian since she was 8 didn't make it easy for her. She also said that if I have a problem with our parents not letting me have boys over, I need to take it up with them, not her. Then she treated me like crap the whole rest of the weekend. I think asking her what's going on was an absolutely fair question and her reaction is over the board. But on the other hand, I'm straight and I have no clue how it is to grow up openly lesbian or closetedly bi. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot and your parents and family. You all just decided she was a lesbian and now you're annoyed that she isn't. What's wrong with you? You haven't been lied to. Learn to mind your own business. Being a tomboy and having crushes on girls doesn't automatically make someone a lesbian, by the way. It's not cool to dictate other people's orientation based on outmoded stereotypes, and it sounds like that has in fact been cause for confusion and struggle on your sister's part. You owe her a big apology. She's absolutely correct that any restrictions or allowances handed down by your parents are their responsibilities, not hers. She does not have to justify her romantic history to you to validate a rule created by your parents. Exactly, your anger is misplaced and you should be speaking with your parents, not your sister. Think about this the other way around. If everyone had assumed she was straight from a young age and then she suddenly said she was dating a best friend that was a girl, you wouldn't have accused her of lying that she was straight, and you wouldn't have made a big deal about it being a female friend that your parents allowed to hang out at the house. You might have been a little surprised, but your accusatory reaction wouldn't have happened. My dad has me, teen male, and my brother, tween male, and our mom died 8 years ago. Dad met Chantel 6 years ago and they got married 2 years ago. Her son is pre-tween. My brother and I have known Chantel and her son for almost 4 years now. Chantel's son Kyle is only a child, has no dad, no extended family, and he latched onto me fiercely when we met. It was frustrating how he'd insert himself into stuff with my brother. He'd invite himself along. He would try to hug me and hold on to me, and my dad and Chantel told me to allow it and hug him when I told them it made me uncomfortable and annoyed me. Eventually, I started to stop him and tell him not to cling to me. Dad and Chantel realized the three of us hadn't bonded the way they wanted us to, for Kyle, so they insisted on leaving me with both him and my brother and having me babysit them while they left the house. This was during the day and night. Dad would also set up times where I had to take them to the park. So I should bring up my brother and I close, like super close. We lost our mom, all 4 grandparents, and our only uncle. We have aunts in the space of like 3 years. Losing them made us closer. I was always an affectionate big brother, my mom used to say that, and our relationship is so easy and natural that we hug. Kyle saw a lot of that during the forced babysitting, the forced park trips, etc. But he never got to hang all over me or be my shadow like he wanted, and I'm not affectionate with him, and it's caused him to have trouble dealing with stuff. Chantel was concerned, and so he went to therapy for that. He admitted to being jealous and that he hates my brother, but he also wants me all to himself. He's still in therapy, but he told Chantel that he's never going to be happy not being my brother. Chantel and Dad blamed it all on me. They said I had a responsibility to Kyle to be a good brother to him and that it was my job as the oldest to look out for him and make sure I was loving him the same as I love my brother. My dad has brought it up a couple of times on his own as well, and the last time I told him that he and Chantel should look at themselves because they knew Kyle was seriously clingy with me and they sent him out with me and my brother knowing we're close and have an affectionate relationship, and did nothing to make sure he'd be okay. He told me I should have put my own feelings aside and done what Kyle needed me to do. Chantel was like, how dare I blame them, and she called me evil for blaming them when I have destroyed her son. I feel guilty. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. And yes, it is your father and stepmother's fault. Kyle should have been told that the two of you are brothers, plus you've both suffered the same serious losses in a very short time. That means the two of you have a special bond. Kyle needs to be taught his bond with you will be different because of that, and he cannot force it. Otherwise, that will only drive you further away. And no one should ever be forced to accept affection and clinginess from someone if it makes them uncomfortable. How have you destroyed her son? Your stepmother needs to go to therapy herself if she can't see that she's part of the problem. Kyle is a ticking time bomb and he will go off on your brother. Please talk to your brother and your aunts about your stepbrother's behavior. I worry about you, to be blunt. In a few years, you're going to be able to live on your own, and you're going to want to have contact with your brother. I suspect your father and Chantel will forbid your brother from coming to see you unless Kyle can go too. That's all accurate. I would avoid the kid altogether after that crap. That is straight up delusional BS. Chantel just didn't want to deal with her kid, so they on purpose dumped him on you. Chantel called you evil. There's no coming back from that in this context. I wonder if Chantel has been doing something to egg this on. I hope you can leave and take your brother in 2 years, because they clearly don't want to do anything to actually manage this.